There exists a peculiar kind of suffering that leaves no visible marks, no bruises, no scars, just an invisible weight that grows heavier with each passing day, settling into the bones like cold water seeping through cracked stone. It is the suffering of the soul that has stopped moving, the mind that has ceased to question, the heart that beats but no longer dares to feel deeply. Ibn Arabi, the mystic philosopher of Andalusia, understood this affliction better than most. He spoke of the nafs, the self, and its tendency to calcify, to harden into patterns so rigid that the spirit itself becomes a prisoner. What does it mean to be mentally stuck? Not the temporary paralysis of decision-making or the brief fog of confusion that visits us all. No, this is something far more insidious. It is the slow crystallization of consciousness into predictable loops, the gradual surrender of authentic living to the tyranny of habit. And here lies the terrible irony. The very routines we construct to bring order to our lives can become the bars of our own cage. Watch someone closely for a week. Not their words, but their movements. The way they wake, the path they walk, the thoughts they entertain, the emotions they avoid. You will begin to see something extraordinary, or rather, something terrifyingly ordinary. You will see automation. The human being, that magnificent creature capable of philosophy, art, and transcendence, reduced to a series of mechanical responses. The alarm rings, the hand reaches, the coffee brews, the phone glows, the mind wanders to the same worries, rehearses the same arguments, mourns the same losses. Ibn Arabi wrote that the greatest distance is not between heaven and earth, but between the person you are and the person you could become. Every day, this distance is measured not in grand decisions, but in tiny habits. Those unconscious choices that seem too small to matter until suddenly they are all that matters. The soul does not announce its stagnation with fanfare. It whispers, it withdraws. It grows quiet in ways that feel almost comfortable. Consider the morning ritual. For some, it is a sacred time of renewal, a deliberate reconnection with purpose. For others, it is a blur of obligation, each movement dictated by necessity rather than intention. The mentally stuck soul rushes through dawn as if being chased, never pausing to ask why. There is no moment of stillness, no space for the question that might change everything. What am I actually preparing for? The body moves, but the consciousness remains asleep, wrapped in the familiar blanket of yesterday's concerns. And then there is the relationship with silence. Here, perhaps more than anywhere, the stuck soul reveals itself. Fill a room with such a person and notice what happens the moment conversation ceases. The immediate reach for a device, the sudden need to create noise, the discomfort that spreads across their face like a shadow. Ibn Arabi spoke of khalwa, the practice of spiritual retreat, not as an escape from the world, but as a confrontation with the self. Yet the modern condition has taught us to fear this confrontation above all else. Silence becomes a threat, because in silence we might hear the truth our habits have been designed to drown out. What truth? That we are living half-lives, that we have confused comfort with contentment, routine with purpose, familiarity with love. The stuck soul is not necessarily unhappy in the conventional sense. It may even experience moments of pleasure, flashes of satisfaction. But these are shallow waters, and somewhere deep beneath the surface, the authentic self is slowly suffocating. Look at the way people consume information. The endless scroll, the perpetual refresh, the hunger for novelty that is never quite satisfied because it is not really about the content at all. It is about the movement, the sensation of progress, without the risk of actual change. The mind becomes a muscle trained only to twitch, never to hold, never to truly grasp something and wrestle with it until understanding emerges. This is not knowledge seeking, it is knowledge grazing. And a soul that only grazes never develops the strength to dig deep. Ibn Arabi warned of the nafs al-ammara, the commanding soul, that aspect of ourselves that demands instant gratification, that cannot tolerate discomfort, that insists the world arrange itself according to our immediate desires. The habits of the stuck soul are the habits of this commanding self. They are patterns designed not to facilitate growth, but to avoid the pain that growth requires. Every time we choose the familiar path, when the unfamiliar beckons. Every time we silence a difficult emotion rather than explore it. Every time we repeat a conversation we have had 1,000 times before, we are feeding this commanding aspect and starving the spirit that longs to evolve. There is a particular relationship with time that betrays mental stagnation. Watch how someone speaks of their days. Is there presence? Is there awareness of the gift that each moment represents? Or is there only waiting for the weekend, for the vacation, for the retirement, for the someday that never quite arrives? The stuck soul lives perpetually in a state of postponement, convinced that real life exists somewhere other than here, sometime other than now. This is not hope, it is avoidance dressed in hope's clothing. And what of the body? The vessel that carries consciousness through the world. The mentally stuck soul often treats the body as an afterthought, or worse, as an enemy. There is either complete neglect or obsessive control, but rarely a genuine relationship. Movement becomes perfunctory. The mechanical exercise routine performed without joy, the walk taken only for health benefits, the dance long forgotten. Ibn Arabi understood that the body is not separate from the soul, but its expression in material form. When we ignore the body's wisdom, when we override its signals, when we force it into patterns that feel wrong simply because they are what we have always done, we commit a kind of violence against our own wholeness. Consider the social patterns of the stuck soul. There is often a small circle of relationships maintained more by history than by genuine connection. Conversations follow scripts written years ago. Everyone knows their role. There is safety in this predictability, but there is also a slow death. New people are viewed with suspicion or indifference, not because they are threatening in any concrete way, but because they represent the possibility of change. And change requires energy that the stuck soul no longer knows how to summon. Vulnerability becomes impossible. Not because of any conscious decision, but because the defenses have been built so slowly, so carefully, that they now seem like natural features of the personality rather than constructions. Ask such a person how they really feel and watch the automatic deflection, the quick joke, the vague generalization, the change of subject. This is not lying exactly. It is something more profound. It is the loss of access to one's own emotional truth. The heart speaks, but the mind has learned not to listen. There is a quality of exhaustion that characterizes the mentally stuck soul, and it is not the clean tiredness that comes from honest effort. It is the deep fatigue of maintaining a facade, of keeping up appearances, of trying to convince oneself that everything is fine when some wordless part of the being knows it is not. This exhaustion manifests in peculiar ways: the inability to start new projects, the lack of curiosity about the world, the preference for passive entertainment over active engagement. Life becomes something to be endured rather than explored. Ibn Arabi spoke of the concept of himma, often translated as spiritual aspiration or the power of the heart's intention. It is the force that propels consciousness toward its highest possibility. But himma requires fuel, and that fuel is genuine desire, authentic engagement with life. The stuck soul has lost touch with its himma, not because it lacks desire. The commanding self always has desires, but because those desires have become so small, so conventional, so thoroughly domesticated, that they no longer carry the power to transform. Watch what happens when you suggest something truly new to someone who is mentally stuck. Not a minor variation on a familiar theme, but something genuinely different. A trip to a place they have never considered, a book that challenges their fundamental assumptions, a practice that would require them to confront their own limitations. Notice the immediate resistance, the arsenal of reasons why it is not practical, not possible, not necessary. This is not rational evaluation. It is the stuck soul defending its stagnation. And yet beneath all of this, beneath the layers of habit and defense and unconscious patterns, something remains alive. Ibn Arabi believed in the fitra, the original nature of the human soul, uncorrupted and whole. This fitra cannot be destroyed, only buried. Every moment of discomfort, every flash of longing for something more, every dream that disrupts sleep with its insistence, these are the fitra trying to break through, the authentic self refusing to be entirely silenced. The tragedy is not that people become stuck. The tragedy is that they become stuck and then forget that another way of being is possible. They begin to believe that their current state is simply who they are, rather than understanding it as a temporary condition created by temporary habits. They look at others who seem more alive, more engaged, more genuinely present, and they think, that person is different from me. They fail to see that the difference is not in fundamental nature, but in the daily choices that either nurture consciousness or slowly suffocate it. Consider the relationship with emotion that the stuck soul develops. There is often a very narrow range of acceptable feelings. Anything too intense, too raw, too uncomfortable is immediately suppressed or distracted from. Sadness is weakness. Anger is danger. Joy that is too exuberant is embarrassing. So the emotional life becomes flattened, pressed into a safe middle register, where nothing too threatening can emerge. But emotions are not meant to be managed into submission. They are information, signals from the deep self about what matters, what hurts, what needs attention. When we systematically ignore these signals, we lose our inner compass. The mentally stuck soul often develops a peculiar relationship with the past. There is either excessive nostalgia, an idealized memory of how things used to be, or bitter resentment over old wounds that never quite healed. Either way, the past becomes a weight that makes forward movement nearly impossible. Ibn Arabi taught that time is not linear in the way we typically imagine it, that the present moment contains all moments if we know how to access it. But the stuck soul cannot fully inhabit the present because it is always looking backward, either with longing or with accusation. And what of dreams? Not the sleep kind, but the aspirations that once burned bright. Ask someone who is mentally stuck about their dreams, and you will often encounter one of two responses. Either a sheepish admission that they no longer remember what they once wanted, or a defensive insistence that they have achieved everything they set out to achieve. Both responses reveal the same thing: a disconnection from the future self, from possibility, from the idea that growth might continue throughout life, rather than stopping at some arbitrary point of supposed maturity. There is a way of working that reveals mental stagnation. It is not about the specific job or the level of achievement. It is about the relationship to the work itself. The stuck soul approaches work as pure obligation, a necessary evil to be endured. There is no curiosity about how things might be done better, no interest in mastery for its own sake, no sense of contribution to something larger than personal survival. Work becomes a prison sentence, with weekends as temporary parole. Even leisure time tells a story. Watch how someone spends their free hours. Is there real rest? Is there rejuvenation? Or is there only numbing, the binge-watching, the excessive drinking, the mindless shopping, the activities that require no presence and leave nothing behind but lost time? The stuck soul has forgotten how to truly rest, because rest requires the ability to let go, and letting go requires trust, and trust requires a kind of openness that years of habit have closed off. Ibn Arabi spoke of the kashf, the unveiling, those moments when reality reveals itself with sudden clarity. But kashf requires a certain permeability of consciousness, a willingness to be surprised, to be changed, to discover that what you thought you knew was incomplete. The stuck soul has built walls against such moments, not intentionally, but through the accumulated weight of routines that leave no space for revelation. When life tries to break through with a message, the defenses are so automatic that the message never reaches conscious awareness. Consider the relationship with nature. The stuck soul often lives as if the natural world were mere scenery, optional, irrelevant to the real business of human existence. There are no walks taken simply to walk, no moments of genuine attention to the play of light on water or the architecture of a tree. This disconnection from nature is also a disconnection from the rhythms that govern all life. The cycles of growth and decay, effort and rest, expansion and contraction. The stuck soul tries to live in a permanent state of controlled consistency, and this is as impossible as trying to make the tide stand still. There is a particular way that the stuck soul relates to difficulty. Problems are seen as obstacles to be eliminated rather than invitations to grow. When challenges arise, the immediate response is complaint, resistance, a desire to return to the previous state of comfort. but Ibn Arabi understood that obstacles are often disguised gifts, opportunities for consciousness to expand beyond its current limitations. The soul that always seeks the path of least resistance gradually loses the capacity for genuine achievement, for the satisfaction that comes only through wrestling with what is difficult. Watch what happens with creativity. The stuck soul will often claim to have no creative impulses, no artistic inclinations. But this is never true. Creativity is not the exclusive domain of artists. It is the fundamental expression of consciousness engaging with possibility. What the stuck soul has lost is not creativity itself, but the courage to create, the willingness to make something that might fail, that might be judged, that might reveal some true aspect of the self. So the creative impulse gets channeled into safe expressions, or disappears entirely into the realm of fantasy, things dreamed about, but never attempted. And then there is the relationship with knowledge. The stuck soul often displays one of two extremes, either a proud certainty about everything, an unwillingness to admit doubt or confusion, or a kind of resigned ignorance, a belief that real understanding is impossible or unnecessary. Both positions serve the same function. They protect against the vulnerability of genuine learning, which requires admitting what we do not know and being willing to be changed by new understanding. The language people use reveals everything. Listen to someone who is mentally stuck and you will hear a preponderance of absolutes. Always, never, everyone, no one. This is not the language of nuance and complexity. It is the language of a mind that has stopped making fine distinctions, that has collapsed the rich variability of reality into simple categories. The world becomes black and white, and grey, where all the actual living happens, disappears from view. There is often a subtle but persistent sense of victimhood, not necessarily the dramatic kind, but the quiet conviction that life happens to them rather than through them. Circumstances are blamed. Other people are blamed. The economy, the government, the weather, all are held responsible for the state of their existence. This is not about denying that external factors matter. It is about recognizing that the stuck soul has abandoned agency, has forgotten that within any situation, there remains the freedom to choose one's response, one's interpretation, one's next move. Ibn Arabi taught that the cosmos is constantly being recreated in each moment, that nothing is truly static, that change is the only constant. But the stuck soul lives as if reality were fixed, as if the patterns established years ago must necessarily persist forever. This creates a terrible irony. In seeking security through unchanging routines, the stuck soul actually becomes more fragile, less adaptable, less capable of meeting life's inevitable changes with grace. Consider the relationship with mortality. The stuck soul either obsesses over death in a morbid way or denies it entirely, living as if there were infinite time for everything. Both approaches prevent the healthy awareness of finitude that gives each moment its weight and urgency. When we truly understand that our time is limited, that this day will never come again, that the people we love will not be here forever, life becomes precious in a way that breaks through habitual sleepwalking. But this awareness is exactly what the stuck soul cannot afford, because it would demand immediate change. There is a quality of listening that reveals mental stagnation. The stuck soul listens not to understand, but to respond, not to be changed, but to find the gap where they can insert their own predetermined views. Conversations become competitive rather than collaborative. The other person is not a fellow explorer of reality, but either an adversary to be defeated or an audience for one's rehearsed monologues. Real communication, that miraculous meeting of consciousnesses where both parties emerge transformed, becomes impossible. Watch how someone treats strangers, people from whom they want nothing and to whom they owe nothing. This reveals the true character more reliably than how they treat friends or family. The stuck soul often displays a casual cruelty, or more commonly, a complete indifference. Other people become obstacles or scenery, not fellow souls on the same journey. This is not about being extroverted or sociable. It is about maintaining a basic recognition of shared humanity, a capacity for spontaneous kindness that requires no justification or reward. The relationship with money and material possessions tells its own story. The stuck soul often displays either excessive attachment or performative rejection, but rarely a balanced relationship. Things become laden with meaning they cannot bear, symbols of worth, of success, of security against the void. Or there is the opposite, a proud poverty that is really just another form of the same disease, defining oneself in opposition to material reality, rather than finding a genuine relationship with it. Ibn Arabi spoke of the importance of the middle way, of being neither enslaved by the world nor rejecting what is legitimately needed and beautiful. There is often a distrust of joy. When genuine delight arises, unexpected, unearned, simply given by grace, the stuck soul immediately becomes suspicious. What's wrong? What bad thing is waiting around the corner? This too shall pass, they remind themselves, and in doing so, they pass right through the moment of joy without really experiencing it. They have trained themselves to expect disappointment, and so they preemptively detach from anything good, never allowing themselves the full experience of happiness, lest the subsequent pain be too great. Consider the relationship with solitude versus loneliness. These are not the same thing, though the stuck soul often confuses them. Solitude is chosen, rejuvenating, a time of deep communion with oneself. Loneliness is imposed, draining, a sense of disconnection even in a crowd. The stuck soul often fills their life with constant company, not because they genuinely enjoy connection, but because they are running from the loneliness they carry inside themselves. And so they are never truly alone and never truly together, always at a middle distance from both themselves and others. The dreams that visit in sleep become telling. The stuck soul often reports the same recurring dreams, variations on themes of being trapped, of trying to move but finding themselves paralyzed, of searching for something they can never find. These are not random productions of brain chemistry. They are messages from the unconscious, attempts by the deeper self to communicate what waking consciousness refuses to acknowledge. But even these messages are typically ignored or dismissed as meaningless. There is a relationship with technology that reveals stagnation. Not about whether someone uses technology, we all do, but about how. The stuck soul uses technology primarily for distraction and escape, for creating an illusion of connection that requires no real vulnerability, for accumulating information that will never be transformed into wisdom. The device becomes a barrier between consciousness and direct experience, a way of always having something to do that prevents ever being fully present. Ibn Arabi wrote that the heart has eyes that see what the physical eyes cannot perceive. But the stuck soul has allowed these inner eyes to atrophy. There is no attention paid to intuition, to the subtle feelings that arise before rational thought, to the body's wisdom about what is right and wrong for this particular life. Everything must be justified, explained, made rational. The mysterious is dismissed as mere confusion, and the ineffable is simply ignored because it cannot be captured in familiar categories. Watch what happens with gratitude. The stuck soul either practices gratitude as an obligation, a checklist item on the path to self-improvement, or dismisses it as naive positivity. But real gratitude is neither of these things. It is a radical recognition of the gift of existence itself, the astonishing fact that there is something rather than nothing, that consciousness has emerged in this particular form, that beauty exists even amid suffering. This kind of gratitude does not require that everything be perfect. It is compatible with grief, with anger, with the full range of human experience. But the stuck soul has lost access to it. There is often a relationship with authority that reveals mental stagnation, either excessive deference, the belief that someone else always knows better, or reflexive rebellion against any guidance or wisdom from others. Both positions are ways of avoiding personal responsibility for one's own development. The genuinely growing soul learns to listen to teachers without surrendering autonomy, to respect wisdom without becoming a follower, to maintain both humility and sovereignty. Consider how someone responds to beauty. The stuck soul walks past miracles daily without noticing. The particular quality of light at dusk, the stranger's unexpected smile, the line in a poem that could crack the world open if allowed. Everything beautiful is filed under nice and immediately forgotten, because beauty demands response, and response requires the energy and openness that stagnation has depleted. The aesthetic dimension of existence, the realm where meaning and feeling merge, becomes inaccessible. There is a relationship with ritual that reveals the condition of the soul. The stuck soul either rejects ritual entirely as meaningless tradition or performs rituals mechanically, with no understanding of their purpose or power. But ritual, properly understood, is a way of marking significance, of creating sacred space in the midst of ordinary time, of connecting personal consciousness to something larger. Whether religious or secular, ritual has the power to interrupt the automaticity of daily life, but only if performed with presence and intention. The way someone makes decisions tells everything. The stuck soul either agonizes endlessly over choices, paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong move, or makes snap decisions without real consideration, relying on habit or impulse. Both approaches avoid the challenging middle path of genuine discernment, sitting with uncertainty, gathering information without being overwhelmed by it, listening to both rational analysis and intuitive wisdom, making a choice and then living into it fully rather than constantly second-guessing. Ibn Arabi taught that the universe is constantly speaking, offering signs and guidance to those who know how to read them, but the stuck soul has become deaf to these communications. Synchronicities are dismissed as coincidence. Dreams are just dreams. The book that falls open to exactly the passage needed is merely chance. This is not about embracing superstition. It is about maintaining a certain permeability, a willingness to be surprised by meaning, to acknowledge that reality might be more responsive and intelligent than our conventional materialist framework suggests. There is often a peculiar relationship with pleasure. The stuck soul seeks it constantly but enjoys it rarely. Anticipation replaces actual experience. Planning the vacation becomes more engaging than being on the vacation. Looking forward to the meal overshadows the eating of it. This is because pleasure, real pleasure, requires presence, and presence is exactly what the accumulated habits have destroyed. The mind is always already moving to the next thing, never resting fully in what is. Watch what happens with mistakes and failures. The stuck soul responds with either crushing self-criticism or defensive externalization of blame. There is no middle ground, no capacity to look at failure as information, as a teacher, as an inevitable part of any genuine attempt at growth. This makes learning nearly impossible because learning requires the willingness to be bad at something before becoming good, to stumble before walking, to fail before succeeding. The stuck soul, unwilling to endure this temporary discomfort, remains forever at the level of what is already known and mastered. There is a relationship with aging that reveals spiritual condition. The stuck soul either fights the aging process with desperate intensity or surrenders to it with bitter resignation. But there is another way, the way that Ibn Arabi's wisdom suggests: to age consciously, to allow the body's natural changes to be accompanied by a deepening of wisdom, a refining of what matters, a letting go of what is no longer necessary. Each stage of life offers its own gifts, but only if we are willing to fully inhabit that stage rather than clinging to what came before or anxiously anticipating what comes next. Consider the relationship with forgiveness. The stuck soul often holds grudges for years, decades even, not because the original wound was so severe, but because releasing the grudge would require a kind of death, the death of a story they have told themselves about who they are and what was done to them. The grudge becomes part of identity, and identity must be protected at all costs. But this protection comes at the price of freedom. The unforgiven past becomes a chain binding the present to the most painful moments of history. There is often a disconnection from lineage, from history, from the sense of being part of a larger story that extends beyond one's individual life. The stuck soul lives as if they were the first person to face these questions, these challenges, as if no wisdom had been accumulated by the countless souls who came before. This is a kind of arrogance masquerading as independence. It cuts us off from resources that might be exactly what is needed to break free from stagnation. Watch what happens with transitions. The stuck soul tries to rush through them, to get quickly from the ending to the new beginning without honoring the necessary period of uncertainty in between. But it is precisely in this liminal space, this neither here nor there, that transformation becomes possible. When we resist the discomfort of not knowing, when we try to immediately establish new certainties to replace the old ones, we miss the opportunity for genuine metamorphosis. Ibn Arabi spoke of the barzakh, the isthmus, the place between two worlds where opposites meet and new possibilities emerge. But the stuck soul cannot tolerate the barzakh. Everything must be resolved, categorized, made certain. The tension of paradox is immediately collapsed into false resolution. This is why growth becomes impossible, because growth happens precisely in the space of not yet knowing, in the uncomfortable territory where old structures have broken down but new ones have not yet formed. There is a relationship with the sacred that reveals spiritual stagnation. This is not about adherence to any particular religion or the lack thereof. It is about whether there remains any sense of the numinous, any capacity for awe, any recognition that existence itself is a mystery worthy of reverence. The stuck soul has become too sophisticated for wonder, too knowing for genuine questions, too defended against the vulnerability that true spiritual opening requires. Consider how someone responds to feedback. The stuck soul either becomes immediately defensive, unable to hear any suggestion that they might need to change, or collapses into shame, taking criticism as confirmation of their fundamental unworthiness. Both responses prevent actual learning, the capacity to receive feedback gracefully, to consider it carefully, to take what is useful and release what is not, to allow others to be mirrors without becoming enslaved to their reflections. This is a mark of a soul that remains fluid and capable of growth. There is often a relationship with ambition that reveals stagnation, either frantic striving driven by the need to prove worth, or the complete abandonment of aspiration, settling into a kind of premature retirement from life. But healthy ambition is neither of these extremes. It is the natural movement of consciousness toward fuller expression, toward the actualization of potential, not for external validation, but for the inherent satisfaction of becoming more fully what one is capable of being. The way someone tells their own story reveals everything. The stuck soul's narrative has become fixed, rehearsed, edited down to a few key scenes that get repeated in every telling. There is no room for reinterpretation, no willingness to see past events from new angles, no acknowledgement that the meaning of experiences can change as we ourselves change. The story becomes a prison rather than a resource, a way of limiting possibility rather than understanding it. Ibn Arabi taught that each soul has a unique relationship with the divine, a particular way of perceiving and expressing ultimate reality that belongs to no one else. But discovering this uniqueness requires the courage to leave behind the safety of conventional understanding, to risk the judgment of others, to trust the authenticity of one's own direct experience, even when it contradicts received wisdom. The stuck soul has abandoned this quest in favor of borrowed certainties that fit comfortably but feel hollow. There is a relationship with conflict that reveals spiritual condition. The stuck soul either avoids conflict at all costs, maintaining false peace through constant compromise and self-suppression, or engages in conflict destructively, needing to win rather than to understand. But healthy conflict is generative, a way that difference produces new understanding, a crucible where transformation becomes possible. Learning to engage with disagreement creatively, to hold tension without collapsing it prematurely, is a mark of psychological and spiritual maturity. Watch what happens with the body's signals. Pain is immediately medicated. Hunger is either indulged or denied. Fatigue is overridden with stimulants. The stuck soul lives in a state of constant negotiation with physical reality, trying to force the body to conform to external schedules and expectations rather than honoring its own rhythms. This violence against the body is also violence against the soul, for they are not separate but aspects of a unified whole. There is often a relationship with silence and stillness that reveals the condition of consciousness. The stuck soul cannot tolerate either. Movement must be constant, noise must fill every space, stimulation must never cease. But it is in silence that the soul speaks its deepest truths, and it is in stillness that the constant motion of the mind finally settles enough for clarity to emerge. The aversion to silence is really an aversion to self-knowledge, to the confrontation with what lies beneath the surface of perpetual distraction. Consider the relationship with commitment. The stuck soul either avoids commitment entirely, keeping all options open in a way that prevents deep engagement with anything, or commits rigidly to outdated promises, unable to adapt when circumstances or understanding changes. But mature commitment is dynamic. It is fidelity to values rather than to fixed forms, loyalty to growth rather than to stagnation, the capacity to honor promises while also recognizing when a promise has become a prison. Ibn Arabi wrote of the journey of return, the path back to the source from which all souls emerge. But this return is not regression. It is a spiral movement that revisits familiar territory at ever deeper levels of understanding. The stuck soul has ceased to spiral. It either moves in circles, covering the same ground repeatedly without gaining altitude, or stops moving altogether, convinced that where it currently stands is the final destination. And yet, despite all of this, despite the weight of accumulated habits, despite years or decades of unconscious living, the possibility of awakening remains. Not someday, not after some dramatic intervention, but now, in this moment, through the simple act of noticing. What am I actually doing? What am I actually feeling? What am I actually avoiding? These questions, if asked with genuine curiosity rather than judgment, can begin to create the cracks through which light enters. The first step is always the same: awareness. Not the awareness that immediately tries to fix or change, but the gentler awareness that simply observes without condemning. To watch oneself with the same patient attention one might give to a child learning to walk, allowing the stumbles, celebrating the small victories, maintaining faith in the possibility of movement even when progress seems impossibly slow. Ibn Arabi understood that transformation cannot be forced. The soul has its own timing, its own rhythms. What we can do is create conditions that favor growth, introducing small disruptions to automatic patterns, seeking experiences that challenge comfortable assumptions, maintaining connection with others who are also committed to waking up, cultivating practices that create space for something new to emerge. The stuck soul is not a permanent condition, but a temporary state, however long it has lasted. Every moment offers a choice: to continue in the familiar grooves or to risk the discomfort of a new way. And the beautiful truth is that it takes very little actual change to begin the process of unsticking. A single new habit, practiced with consistency, a single difficult conversation, had with honesty, a single belief, questioned with courage. These small acts begin to create momentum, and momentum builds upon itself. But there must be no waiting for perfect conditions, no postponing until the path is clear and the outcome certain. That moment never arrives. The journey begins in the middle of confusion, in the midst of doubt, with inadequate resources and insufficient knowledge. It begins with a single step taken not because we know where it will lead, but because standing still has become more painful than moving forward into the unknown. And in taking that step, in making that small move toward greater aliveness, something extraordinary happens. The universe responds. Not necessarily with dramatic signs or immediate rewards, but with subtle confirmations. A conversation that comes at exactly the right moment. A book that offers precisely the insight needed. An opportunity that would have gone unnoticed before, but now appears with sudden clarity. The world is always ready to meet us at the level of our genuine commitment to growth. This is the gift hidden within the challenge of mental stagnation. It reveals exactly where we are, and therefore where the work needs to happen. No more hiding, no more pretending. The stuck soul is stuck in specific ways, and these specific ways point toward specific practices, specific changes, specific awakenings. The very habits that bind us also show us the path to freedom, if we have the courage to look closely and honestly. Ibn Arabi's wisdom reminds us that the journey is not about becoming someone other than who we are. It is about removing the accumulated layers that obscure our essential nature, like cleaning dust from a mirror until it can reflect clearly again. We do not need to acquire consciousness. We need to stop doing the things that cloud it. We do not need to find our souls. We need to stop avoiding them. And so the question becomes not, am I mentally stuck, but rather, where and how am I stuck, and what am I willing to do about it? This question, held with genuine curiosity and commitment, becomes the beginning of liberation. Not a liberation that arrives fully formed in some distant future, but one that unfolds moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath, in the sacred and always available now.